What if I told you that Christopher Columbus didn't discover America? What if I told you that 500 years before Columbus was even born, a red-haired Viking warrior had already set foot on North American soil, established colonies, and traded with Native Americans? This isn't some conspiracy theory or alternate history fantasy. This is documented fact that somehow got lost in the pages of history. Today we're talking about Leif Erikson, the man who actually discovered America first, and why nobody seemed to care. By the end of this video, you'll question everything you thought you knew about the age of exploration. Because the real story of America's discovery involves Viking longships, brutal battles with Native Americans, and a discovery so incredible that even the Vikings themselves forgot about it. Our story begins with Erik the Red, one of the most notorious Vikings in history. In 982 AD, Erik was exiled from Iceland for murder, typical Viking Tuesday. But instead of wallowing in shame, he decided to explore westward and discovered a massive island he cleverly named Greenland to attract settlers. Classic Viking marketing. Erik established colonies in Greenland that would survive for over 400 years. His son, Leif Erikson, grew up hearing sailors' tales of lands even further west. Around the year 1000 AD, when most Europeans thought the world was flat and ended in monsters, Leif was planning the most ambitious voyage in history. He gathered a crew of 35 Vikings and set sail into the unknown Atlantic. These weren't just any Vikings, they were professional explorers who had already colonized Iceland and Greenland. They had the skills, the ships, and the absolute fearlessness needed to cross an ocean that terrified the rest of the world. Leif's expedition first landed in what they called Helluland, which means land of flat stones, likely modern-day Baffin Island in Canada. But they didn't stop there. They continued south and discovered Markland, meaning forestland, probably Labrador. Finally, they reached the place that would make history, Vinland, or Wineland, somewhere in modern-day Newfoundland. Here's what blew their minds: grapes growing wild, salmon bigger than any they'd seen in Norway, and timber perfect for shipbuilding. 4 Vikings from ice-covered Greenland, this was literally paradise. They built permanent structures, including houses and workshops. Archaeological evidence from L'Anse aux Meadows in Newfoundland proves this actually happened. These weren't temporary camps, these were planned settlements designed to last. Leif's crew spent the entire winter in America, something Columbus would never dare attempt on his first voyage. Here's where the story gets really interesting. The Vikings weren't alone in America. They encountered people they called Skraelings, likely the ancestors of modern Native American tribes. Initial contact was actually peaceful. Vikings and Native Americans traded goods, Norse iron tools for Native American furs and food. But this is Vikings we're talking about. Peace didn't last long. According to the sagas, conflicts erupted when cultural misunderstandings turned into violence. One account describes a massive battle where Native Americans attacked the Viking settlement with what the Norse described as war slings and projectiles. The Vikings, despite their reputation as fierce warriors, were actually outnumbered and outmaneuvered by Native Americans who knew the terrain. This wasn't the story of European superiority that Columbus would later represent. These Native Americans successfully defended their homeland against Viking invasion, something history rarely acknowledges. So if Vikings found this amazing land full of resources, why did they abandon it? Several factors contributed to their withdrawal. First, the distance from Greenland made regular supply runs nearly impossible with their technology. Second, the Native American resistance was more organized and effective than Vikings expected. Third, and most importantly, there simply weren't enough Vikings. Greenland's total population was only about 5,000 people, and most couldn't be spared for risky colonial adventures. Unlike Columbus, who had the backing of entire Spanish Empire, Leif Erikson was basically running a family business. The Vikings made several more attempts to establish American colonies over the next decade. Leif's brother Thorvald died in a battle with Native Americans. His sister-in-law Gudrid led one expedition that included the first recorded European child born in America. But ultimately, the combination of hostile natives, supply problems, and limited manpower forced them to abandon their American dream and return to Greenland. Here's the tragedy. The Viking discovery of America was well documented in their own historical records called sagas. The Greenland Saga and Erik the Red Saga contain detailed accounts of these voyages, including geographical descriptions that match real locations. So why did the world forget? First, Vikings didn't have printing presses or widespread literacy. Their stories were preserved through oral tradition and limited written records that stayed within Scandinavian culture. Second, the Viking colonies in Greenland eventually died out during the Little Ice Age of the 14th century, taking their institutional memory with them. Third, medieval Europe was focused on the Mediterranean and Middle East, not the North Atlantic. When Columbus made his voyage in 1492, he had something Vikings didn't: publicity. The printing press had been invented, literacy was spreading, and Columbus had the Spanish crown's marketing machine behind him. His discovery was immediately publicized across Europe, while the Viking achievement remained buried in Icelandic manuscripts that most Europeans couldn't read. The Viking discovery of America wasn't proven until the 1960s, when Norwegian archaeologists Helga and Stein Ingstad excavated Lance Aux Meadows in Newfoundland. They found definitive evidence of Norse settlement, including a Viking-style forge, Norse artifacts, and building techniques that matched Greenland construction. Carbon dating confirmed these structures were built around 1000 AD, exactly when the sagas claimed. This discovery revolutionized our understanding of pre-Columbian contact between Europe and America. But here's the irony: even after proving Vikings reached America first, Columbus still gets the credit for discovering it. Why? Because Columbus's voyage actually mattered to history. His discovery led to permanent European colonization, global trade networks, and the transformation of two continents. The Viking voyages, impressive as they were, ultimately had no lasting historical impact. They discovered America and then forgot about it. It's like inventing the internet and then using it only to email your mom. So there you have it. Vikings discovered America 500 years before Columbus, established settlements, traded with Native Americans, and then abandoned it all because they couldn't make it profitable. It's one of history's greatest what-ifs. What if the Vikings had successfully colonized America? What if European Native American contact had happened 500 years earlier under different circumstances? The Viking discovery of America proves that sometimes being first doesn't matter. It's being remembered that counts. What other forgotten historical discoveries do you think deserve more recognition? Let me know in the comments, and subscribe for more incredible stories that somehow got lost in the history books.